This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stockbox interview. Hello and welcome back to the Research Talks podcast here on Stockbox with Alan Green. Alan, it's nearly the weekend. We're doing this later on a Friday, so we're even closer to the weekend than usual, probably only an hour or two away. How are you doing?
It's tantalisingly close, Mark, isn't it? You can almost reach out and touch it. That cold beer is only a few hours away. So,
indeed,
yes.
Indeed.
Yes, it's been an interesting week one way or another, and certainly looking forward to this weekend. And I think obviously we've got the bank holiday weekend coming up the weekend after. I'm kind of mentally winding down for that, I think. But we'll see. We'll see.
The last kind of lull, I think, before we all hit back again in September, and see everything flourish again, hopefully.
Yeah, although it's a funny thing, isn't it? Everyone thinks, first of September, it's all going to massively kick off. But looking back over the past few years, I think I can remember drumming my fingers on the table in mid-late September last year, thinking, well, that didn't happen, did it? I think it'll gradually pick up, but it's certainly. I think normally it's October before things really start to move. So, hoping for an Indian summer and a busier period. I think. Yes. I think we all are.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, so today you're going to talk to us about the Aqueous Exchange. Hopefully, dispel a few myths about Aqueous and investing on Aqueous, and some of the investment opportunities on that exchange, because there are quite a few good ones, and unusual ones as well that you perhaps don't find on the main or the AIM. And, of course, Dekel Agri-Vision as well, which is interesting because they are, of course, into palm oil, aren't they?
They're into palm oil and cashew nuts, yes.
And
yes,
cashew
they are
nuts,
indeed.
That's right, cashew nuts, yeah. So, slightly different style this week, but go on, what do you want to take us off with?
Well, let's start with Aqueous Exchange, and this, of course, is a company that has evolved gradually, and I think as investors, we've all become increasingly aware of the Aqueous stock market over the past few years, and that's simply because the company are actually doing a great job in really putting the Aqueous Stock Exchange on the map as a viable trading venue, and a venue that I think can be trusted and has integrity, and it isn't sort of at risk of putting you into stocks that have very little volatility and offer a risky trading proposition. I think it's fair to say that a lot of stocks at this level do give a greater degree of risk than perhaps some of the larger, more liquid stocks. But nonetheless, through their activities, Aqueous have sought to reduce the risk there. So the entity Aqueous Exchange PLC is listed on AIM. The EPIC code is AQX. We've seen the stock. The stock is currently trading with a market cap of 188 million. So that's the entire collective entity value. Shares are traded as high as 710 pence on the year. Currently just below that at 685p, and as low as 320 on the 320 pence on the year. So the company, the entity, the PLC, it describes itself as a technology-driven exchange services group, which is bringing innovation, transparency, and competition to the exchange industry. There are three divisions, and if you go to the aqueous.eu website, you'll see how the company is constructed. At the top, you've got the PLC entity, which of course is the investment proposition, and then there are three divisions. There's the Aqueous Exchange division, which operates a number of multilateral trading facilities, and it prides itself on having what it refers to as a lit order book. In other words, that the order books for all its products are visible to all users using the service and trading on the service, and also it keeps out aggressive non-client proprietary trading, and I think with some of the older match bargain facilities, there was a significant risk of this sort of these sort of events happening, and in effect, shareholders getting shareholders losing out to techniques such as this. So it states as an exchange that offers lower toxicity, put my teeth back in, and risk. So the Aqueous Exchange provides this service to a number of entities across Europe, and in fact, in August, the company said that its multilateral trading facilities had achieved a record market share of 6.2% of all pan-European trading, and that's quite an achievement. I mean, that's if we look at the Frankfurt Exchange, for instance, the Frankfurt Exchange has Germany's largest. Germany's investment community, which is the largest in Europe, and of course a fully electronic market. And to actually achieve that sort of volume against some of the big players in the market is no mean achievement. Off the back of that, we're seeing improved revenues, of course, improved commissions from this, and the company said earlier this year that it expects for its investors, for the PLC, it expects to deliver a maiden full year profit, which is a great achievement. So division number two is Aqueous Technologies, and of course that's the entity that provides the software and technology for all of its activities, and it provides cutting-edge market surveillance and gateways into the market for banks, brokers, and investment companies. We then come down to the actual stock exchange itself, AQSE, and of course this is where a primary market is provided for companies coming to market for the first time, so listing their shares on the market in the first instance, and of course a secondary market for traders and investors to buy and sell shares in those stocks on the market. And that process in the secondary market has become considerably easier, partly due to the reliability and the perceived lower risk that investors are now seeing with Aqueous, and also the fact that it's more accessible. So if you have an account with Hargreaves Lansdown, if you have an account with AJ Bell, all of the big providers will now offer you access to Aqueous stocks, and of course they're listed in your portfolio, and you see the price rise and fall, rather than having to get on the phone and find out what the situation with the stock is, which was the case a few years ago. Now, and let's not forget as well that the Aqueous Stock Exchange is, if you like, the central component to the PLC. Has quite a history, and of course it is a permissioned, it's permissioned as a recognised investment exchange, but it's evolved, and it's evolved a number of times over the years. I can remember going back to the noughties when we had OFX, so we then evolved into Plus Markets, then ISDX, then Next Exchange, and of course finally, most recently, the Aqueous Exchange. And I think it just sits very well as a business model amongst all of them. And the evolution that's driven this increase in the number of stocks traded on the exchange is down to a number of factors. Back in December last year, the AQSE launched Access and Apex, and Access, of course, is basically the entry level for new admissions, and also special purpose acquisition companies. We've all heard about SPACs with a minimum 700,000 market cap. It then created the Apex sector across the Aqueous market, and Apex is designed to mark out growth companies and companies that the exchange believes has great potential for growth. It has a number of set criteria for that. The company has to publish a growth prospectus. It has to have a minimum of market cap of 10 million and at least 25% of the shares in public hands. two market makers, and I recognise corporate governance code. For example, you've got the Quoted Companies Alliance, which is the benchmark for many companies, and also there's some protection from short selling by third parties. So that took place in December. And of course, a number of companies that we know, we discussed, Mark, on here. Coincilium is a very good case in point. That Coincilium was recently designated an apex company, and for all the reasons that we've discussed and the investment proposition that Coincilium offers into the market at the moment. But there are also other factors too. In February, Aqueous announced it recommenced trading in Swiss shares, and of course that brought a lot of the large Swiss companies in, and one had the ability to trade these stocks, such as Roche, on the Aqueous Exchange. And in May, of course, it announced it had gained equivalence with the Frankfurt. I mentioned the Frankfurt Stock Exchange just now for dual quotations. So that means companies listed in Frankfurt can also list on Aqueous and gain equivalence, and vice versa. So an Aqueous company, say with operations in Germany, might want to list over there. It can do so very easily. And of course, through that, you've got exposure to the Europe's largest stock exchange, and also access to German funds as well. And that directly and indirectly has increased the liquidity, the trading, the volume, and of course the growth in Aqueous as an entity. Also in May, the company announced that it was to provide quantitative research was to be provided for apex companies by two research groups, Research Tree and Franion, and that's now underway. And also recognizing that retail investors are critical to its ongoing growth. It undertook a survey earlier this year with Share Society, and they found through that survey that 55% of investors still felt, all 55% of investors polled still felt that they didn't have good access to growth companies. So, of course, armed with that, Aqueous will be going forward and will further develop and seek to improve access and as also visibility and transparency with retail investors. There's a pretty impressive team running Aqueous too. Chairman Nicola Beattie is also chairwoman of XTX Exchange, and she's a non-exec, or XTX Markets. She's a non-exec on Aussie fintech company Iris. She's also a non-exec at Kepler Chevreux. Worked also for the Russian stock exchange for a few years, and Borsa Istanbul, and she also has had several roles with the FCA. So she's very plugged into financial regulation and all of the new initiatives in open finance, decentralized finance, and everything that goes with that. Chief Finance Officer, Chief Ops Officer Jonathan Cleland, of course, ex-chairman and HSBC. With the operations now in Europe, Jonathan will be heading out to work in Europe at some point in the near future, which really sort of brings a very pan-European feel to the company, which is of course overseen by the chief executive, Alistair Haynes, who is of course former CEO of Chi-X Exchange in Europe. So if we look at the chart for the past year, the company's delivered very strong growth over the past year. We've pretty well doubled in value. Shares were trading, as I say, £3.20 last year, and here we are now close to year highs. And really, given the volume, the increase in volume, the increased access, and also the increased awareness of Aqueous as a serious alternative to AIM, I think we're seeing a lot of retail investors and also institutional investors getting more involved with the Aqueous Exchange at various levels. And of course, as a technology leader, it's the company is very much in the frame for exchanges and for financial entities wishing to develop products going forward. So I think the company's got a very bright future. It's very, very well run, and I think the exchange itself, through the various derivations we've seen over the years, I think as Aqueous now, it's gained in profile more in the past 12 to 18 months than it has done really since the early noughties. So I think that's that shouldn't. That has to be recognised, and you can view that. There's a read across there, I believe, into the future potential and continued growth for the company.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I think as well, Aqueous is very welcoming. It's a very welcoming exchange for companies that perhaps are not as welcome on AIM, for example. We talked, you said about Ananda there, of course, the medicinal cannabis. I spoke to someone from Oscillate, which is medical psychedelics, so another sort of well-followed industry, but, perhaps not many investment opportunities out there in this space. Again, that's on Aqueous Exchange. And I like some of the things, some of the facts about Aqueous, that more than the 5% spread and no short selling. Everyone hates the old short sellers, and it's not allowed on the exchange. So I think
exactly,
it's there's some good opportunities on there, and they are getting more and more connected with your retail brokers, which is fantastic.
Yeah, they are. They're connecting with brokers, and also they're listening to what investors are saying. And investors were very clear in that survey earlier this year that there isn't enough access to the market. There isn't enough access to growth companies at the right point. And given what Aqueous have achieved already, I think there's every chance that they're going to go on and address those issues all the way through. They've addressed everything else. They've raised their profile so high now compared to where they were even a year ago. And I think the liquidity and the volume really are going to be the result of this. And we're seeing, I know so many of the apex growth companies that we talk to are seeing huge increases in liquidity and volume compared to this time last year. And the company or the entity, the exchange, is setting itself up as a serious competitor to AIM. And I think companies coming to market now really do have a genuine choice. They can go to AIM, which is far more expensive, of course, with all its liquidity. But the liquidity levels now at Aqueous, the way it's growing, I think it's a first step many companies will choose to make that they wouldn't have made a year ago.
Good, excellent. Okay, well, let's talk about another investment opportunity then. This time in the palm oil and cashew nut space with Dekel Agri-Vision.
This is a fascinating company. Actually, I looked at this company a few weeks ago, and I just took note of their base of operations, and also the fact that they've delivered over the past year. The shares were trading at 2p in August last year, so a year ago, and they've doubled in price since then. With a 26 million market cap, peaked out back at 6p at the start of the year, but have really traded within a narrow trading range since then at about 4.5, between 4.5 and 4.8p. So when you see a chart like that, at some point, there's investors clearly see value. There's a floor in the price at these current levels, and clearly, when something comes along to change that, there is going to be exponential growth as and when that happens. So, Dekel Agri-Vision, the company sets itself out as a collaborative and sustainable platform in agriculture for multiple commodities. It specializes at the moment in palm oil and is moving into cashew nuts, but the palm oil really is the main driver for revenues and for revenue growth at present. And palm oil, of course, as we know, is used. It has a multitude of uses in food products, of course, chips, chocolate, and also in cosmetics with skincare, and also it's an additive to biodiesel as well. So it has multiple applications, and as such has a significant value. And what Dekel have done. The Dekel are based, or operationally, they're based in West Africa's Ivory Coast, and they are in fact a member of the Round Table on Sustainable Palm Oil in the region, the RSPO, which was formed in 2004. And during their time, as they've grown, they've created over 300 new jobs. So their main base of operation is east of Abidjan port. That's the major port in the region. Ayenoan is the plantation, and at Ayenoan, the palm oil project there spans the entire production chain, from cultivating feedstock for the palm oil, for the palms in the nursery, to palm oil production. Currently producing at some 60 tons per hour. And there is the company has a mill, what it calls a CPO, that's crude palm oil extraction mill at Ayenoan, which of course the produce is then shipped to the port and shipped around the world. Mm-hmm. The Ivory Coast has a very good infrastructure. It's the largest cocoa producer in the world. It also produces coffee, third largest coffee producer, and a range of other produce, including cashew nuts. So there's a good infrastructure already in place to develop and get the stuff out of the ground. But where Dekel differs is that it has a collaborative vision. So there are many local smallholders and landowners in the area, all producing. And what Dekel does, it works with these landowners and it buys the produce from them to take to the mill. So rather than having to invest in huge tracts of land to develop palm fields, it works with the local producers and buys the produce from them at good, fair market prices. So the local community are happy, and it's a win for everyone. They are also in the throes of developing at Guitry as well, and Guitry is literally the same distance west from Abidjan. They're developing a plantation there, which will be to develop rights over some 24,000 hectares of land for palm oil production. The work is underway to develop this, and again to work with local landowners to make this happen. So that's very much development in the offing that we should hear about in the coming months. So that really encapsulates the developments in palm oil for the group. It is also working at a project at a place called Tabusu, which is to process raw cashew nuts, RCN as it's known, as it's abbreviated and known locally. Mm-hmm. And again, these are cashew nut plantations grown by local smallholders and also cooperatives, and it has a 70% interest in the plant. The company has recognized that in the region there is a shortfall in production capacity. In other words, there's more being grown than can be produced. So it's going to meet that need with a new plant to process cashew nuts, and it's aiming to start the ball rolling with 10,000 tons per annum, increasing to 15,000 tons per annum as we go forward. And that plant has been developed throughout the year. At the start of the year, the company put a new €15 million bond in place to strengthen the balance sheet and fund development of the cashew project. And what is notable is that a number of major financiers have come on board and taken part in the bond, and most recently the Ivorian Bank requested participation, increased the first tranche of just under $6 million. It put nearly $900,000 into that first tranche. A placing also raised 3.5 million before expenses of 70 million shares early this year. So what it means is that the plant is fully funded to production, and first production is expected next month. So we're literally weeks away from that. Now, if we go back to that chart that I talked about at the start, it's those value inflection points that are going to trigger a change in the share price, and we've seen that floor put down where we are, and it's this, I think, that's going to really start the ball rolling. A very strong set of results to half year June 30th, 12.5% increase in CPO production. That's crude palm oil, of course, and going forward, the results for the year are expected to significantly surpass the previous year. And indeed, the board of Dekel, which I'll just cover in a second, said it's the strongest revenue period for the company since joining AIM. And of course, with the prospect of cashew nut production coming online, it's very optimistic going forward about the prospects for revenue production and profitability during the second half of the year. So I mentioned the board. Lincoln Moore is the director. He's been quite high profile with investors here in the UK. Lincoln was a former chief financial officer at Sierra Leone Agriculture, and also founded Ragnar Capital in the Ivory Coast, which has raised over $50 million for palm oil projects both in the Ivory Coast and in Africa. The chairman is a fellow called Andrew Tillery. He has 7 years experience as a chief executive operating in the Ivory Coast, and he's 20 years experience overall, and he has experience working in palm oil, rubber, and also has been largely engaged in private equity transactions during that time. So an experienced board in place, a great team of people on the ground in the Ivory Coast, and I think where the company is now, I think we're going to see some value inflection points arrive very soon, potentially delivering great value for investors going forward to the end of the year.
Okay, so we've got a market cap of 26 million, and they're currently revenue generating on the palm oil front at the moment, aren't they? They are selling.
Oh yes, they are. Yeah, I mean the first half of the year last year, they generated 15.5 million euros, and EBITDA of 1.9 million. So yeah, I mean they're very much revenue producing already, and that's expected to grow rapidly this year. So I think probably that market capitalization now is conservative, but probably when we see the figures and of course production starts at the cashew nut plant, we'll see the valuation move up, or we'll see it rebased anyway.
Yeah, and the cashew start in the autumn, in September, quite soon.
Yeah. We are literally a couple of weeks away. Yeah. In fact, production was expected to start in June, but there were some last-minute teething issues which have delayed production by a few months. But the funding is there to support it, obviously with the bond and with the placing early this year. So everything's in place now to see this come online. Of course, again, lots of local small landowners down there, lots of people with small holdings and various cooperatives down there will all be selling into this new plant and generating wealth for the economy and for the community.
I noticed as well there are monthly updates from the palm oil production, aren't there as well, which is quite good from the company there to keep everyone updated on what exactly is happening there with the sales. Have you had a look through them, Alan? Can you see them sort of?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I have. I have indeed. Well, I'll give you, for instance, 4,800 tons was sold in June, which was up 90% on June 2020. In August, we have a figure for July, 3,000 tons sold. That's up 67.5%, but at a higher price. So the June price was 915 euros per ton. The July price was 949 euros per ton. So that's quite key. So you can calculate from that, based on the cost per ton, where the company's going to be roughly, and you probably won't be too far out.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, I agree there. It's a good investment opportunity for sure, particularly if they're ramping up and you've got those regular updates, and of course with the cashew nut coming online as well, will only add to that. So I'm sure we can talk about that again in a few months' time. Maybe it'll be much higher than it is currently. But right now, then yeah, I would say it's a good investment opportunity there. I think. Obviously, you agree with.
Well, totally. And I think, as I say, when I first looked at this about a week ago, it was the chart that just caught my eye, because we'd had that blip, I think, when the new bond was put in place in January, and then just really consolidation since then. There's price movement between 4.4p and 4.95p, but it stayed within that range, and that's a stock that's tightly held, where revenues are predictable, give or take. I mean, there's obviously variation in the amount of tonnage produced each month, and also the sale price seems to fluctuate quite a bit as well. So taking that all into account, I think the share price accurately reflects where the company is right now. But there seems to be no premium for upside or anything at all from the cashew nut plant production yet. So, that's the exciting part of it for me.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much, Alan Green, there for your time again, talking about the Aqueous Exchange and, of course, Dekel Agri-Vision. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend, Alan. That cold beer must be even closer now than it was when we started the podcast. And
thanks, Mark. It's half an hour closer, but I've got to go on my fitness route march before I can have it. So, yeah. And when I get back, then I really, really will enjoy the beer. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Best of weekend for you, Alan, and I'll speak to you in a week's time.
Thank you, Mark. You too.
Cheers. Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.